Made up business cards so I can pass them out when I go to events. If I see family with kids, like, hey, here's an event type thing. So
Gosh.
I'm working on it. I'm
You
developing
sure,
it.
You sure are.
Okay, I call to order the regular meeting of Monday, May 22nd, 2023 to order. As all who have not signed in, please do so. Please turn off all cell phones and other electronic devices. Please conduct any private conversations in the hallway or outside. This meeting room is equipped with an inductive loop hearing assistance system. You'll be able to hear your conversations through the microphones on hearing aids with a T-switch. Emergency exits can be found to your right and to your left. This meeting is also live streamed via YouTube with text commenting available to the public. This time, if you please join us in a salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, real quick here, we have 5 employees celebrating birthdays in the month of June, and we'll be starting with Adam Rysek on the 5th, Aaron Brandt on the 6th, Leslie Dow on the 7th, our town clerk on the 8th. You want the day off? Okay, I need the day off. And our deputy town supervisor, Dave Condon, on the 16th, so congratulations and birthday wishes to all of you. Reminder, all town facilities will be closed this coming Monday on the 29th. There's a Memorial Day parade. That same day, it starts at 10:30 up at the Victor Central Schools. And in June, our town board meetings will be held on Monday, June 12th. This is a pay bills meeting only, where we'll meet 8 or 8:30 in the morning. The intention is just to pay the town bills. And then our second meeting will be Monday, June 26th, and this takes place, the same scenario, in the months of June, July, and August. Early voting will be here in the main meeting room, starting on Saturday, June 17th, and running through June 25th, and the primary election day is June 27th, and then Father's Day on June 18th. And I want to thank Councilman Condon for he's able to secure 2 of his grandsons to carry the flag, our banner, our town board banner at the parade. So, a couple action items, starting with approval of meeting minutes. No, actually,
Yeah, you have a public hearing.
public hearing. Ask Karen, our town clerk, to read the public hearing notice.
A notice for the public hearing to establish the Southgate Hills Subdivision, Section 3, DIA, scheduled for the 22nd day of May at 7 p.m. in the Victor Town Hall, was published in the Daily Messenger newspaper on May 12th, and a copy was posted on the signboard in the town hall and also posted at the Victor Village Hall.
Thank you, Karen. So at this time, I ask if there's any members of the public care to speak for or against the inclusion of the Southgate Hills Section 3 into the town's drainage improvement area. Again, I ask if there's any members of the public care to speak for or against the inclusion of the Southgate Hills Section 3 into the drainage improvement area. Hearing no comments, I ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we'll go to business. Meeting minutes from May 8th regular scheduled town board meeting.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
You have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
And at this time, we'll ask the clerk to please introduce abstract number 10.
The Victor Town Board has reviewed manifest number 10 in the amount of $218,045.95 with the following accounts charged: general townwide, general outside village, highway townwide, the lighting districts of Fishers, Brookwood Meadows, High Point, Cobblestone, Coil Ridge, Rolling Meadows, Stone Lay, and Legacy at the Fairways, S&S Consolidated Sewer Fund, and Trust and Agency.
Thank you, Karen. So as you can see up on the screens, payment number 1 is to Bluestone Creek Development. This is our June rent, Parks and Rec. Payment 2, Cobblestone Creek Country Club for the Business Awards Luncheon. Number 3, Five Star Bank, the April Visa charge. This is the town credit card. Materials for Willis Hill project. Next is payment to Jim Barnard Chevrolet for the highway pickup truck. And the next one is a building and planning SUV, Jim Barnard Chevrolet as well. Next, payment to LaBella Associates, professional services for the month of April. There are chargebacks to developers on this invoice. Total cost to the town, $12,235. Mengel Metzger Bar, the final town audit charges. Payment to New York State Comptrollers for the April court fees that have been collected. Payment to NOCO Energy for diesel fuel purchases, and payment to Suitco Corporation for the Willis Hill asphalt grinding. Total of the above-mentioned expenditures is $172,151.05. Total town expenditures minus these previous mentioned expenditures equals $45,894.90. Board members, any questions on manifest number 10?
Is that your first Chevy, Mark?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
I mean, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, abstract number 10 has been approved. Okay, privilege of the floor this evening. We have a food waste composting presentation. Carla Jordan is going to be introduced here, and Jerry Leone by our one and only newest department head, Ms. Casey Page.
Hello. So, good evening. I'm here to introduce Carla Jordan and Jerry Leone, who will be presenting on food waste composting. But before I introduce them, I just wanted to give a little background on my relationship with the county and our waste diversion efforts that have brought us to this discussion tonight. I've worked closely with Ontario County Department of Sustainability and Solid Waste Management since 2017. We've implemented various waste diversion programs in our town to limit the amount of waste going into the landfill. In 2019 and 2020, we worked together in a focus group with other representatives from municipalities to come up with a strategic plan for waste reduction through programs and new infrastructure. Food scraps and organics are 30 to 40% of our waste stream. So at the town, we focused our waste diversion efforts on food recycling through the bucket exchange program and at-home composting. Our current vendor for the bucket exchange takes our residents' food scraps and recycles them at a location in Seneca Castle that will soon be closing. So that will not be an option for them. They're going to be looking for a new site. County landfill slated for possible closure in 2028. So recently, we've been talking with both Jerry Leone and Carla Jordan, who are experts in solid waste management, about the possibility of starting a compost site in Ontario County, and more recently, the feasibility in the town of Victor, possibly at the Dryer Road pit. So currently, we kind of double handle the brush and leaf material that's dropped off by residents at our transfer station. So all our residents will bring that material in. Dave will load it with a loader into an open container. He then puts that on the roll-off, and then he takes it to the Dryer Road pit where he unloads it and then comes back to the Roston Road complex. So spring, fall, busy time. He's probably doing this 4 to 6 times, maybe a week. takes him about an hour for the whole process. And all of this is organic material that can be processed with the food scraps to create compost. So a compost facility at the dry road pit could possibly eliminate this process. So I'm going to turn it over to Carla Jordan. She's the director of the Ontario County Department of Sustainability and Solid Waste Management, and she can give you a little more on her background and fill you in on what's happening at the county level and her thoughts on a compost facility in Victor.
Thank you, Casey.
My goodness, certainly not unexpected. Casey did such a great job. There's not very much else I need to say, I think. Supervisor Marin just asked me to come and talk really briefly about how we're handling waste in the county. As many of you know, the current contract with Casella, who operates the county landfill, is over in 2028. So we have 5 years to plan for what comes in the future. And for anyone here who's familiar with planning, that is a frightfully short amount of time to plan for something like this. In addition to that, New York State has several guidelines for municipalities about what we should be doing in the state as it pertains to waste management. So there is a document called New York State Beyond Waste. It was passed in the early 2000s, and it basically sets very ambitious solid waste reduction goals for the state. Many people don't know this, but at the time that plan was written, New York State is actually a net exporter of waste. So because in this area of the state, we're surrounded by landfills, that's really hard, I think, for some of us to grasp. But we still send more material out of state than we do dispose of in state. So the state came up with this plan and said we want to reduce our waste, and then realized there's not really a ton that they can do to make that happen. So they pushed that responsibility down to the planning units, the counties. So Ontario County has a plan, a local solid waste management plan, that requires us to reduce the amount of waste we produce by 59% by 2024. And one of the things I laid out in front of you, my department does this department impact flyer every year, and it's just really the high points of what we did during the year. So I just wanted to point out a couple things to you. If you look in the middle of the first page, you'll see this chart, this bar graph. And so that first, if you look for 2022, all the way to the right, that shows our diversion rate is 40%. And according to our plan in the year 2022, our goal was to be at 51%. So we're still behind where we would like to be, but if you look at where we came from in 2015, we were 9%. So there's certainly a lot that we've done on the county and municipal level to create awareness of the importance of waste diversion in our municipalities. Ontario County as a whole generally produces around 100,000 tons of waste annually. You'll see based on the graph, that blue bar, that blue line, it fluctuates. So in 2022, we were down a little bit. And then the orange bar shows what the material diverted is. That's how many tons of material were recycled, scrap metal that went to be processed, textiles that were recovered, organics that were composted. And then one of the things that we did this past year in the bottom green bar was a waste characterization study. So we actually hired a firm this year, this past summer, who went out to the landfill for a week and diverted trucks that were hauling in material generated from within Ontario County. They took those loads, they separated them, and they literally went through a statistically significant portion of each load, separated it by whether it was truly something that should have been thrown away, whether it could have been composted, whether it should have been recycled or recovered in some other way. They weighed all of that material and then presented the county with a study. If you're interested, that study is on the county's website, ontariocountyrecycles.org. But the high note is the pie chart that you see in front of you. And as Casey mentioned, in Ontario County, our residents are throwing away 32% of organics. So out of everything we're throwing away, 32% of that could be diverted and composted. In addition to just doing it because we think it's a good thing to do. The state is passing legislation relative to organics. This past year, they created the New York Food Donation and Recycling Law, which required generators that create over 2,000 pounds of organic material per week to recycle or divert that material. So your Wegmans, Hobart Williams Smith. In our county, we have about 14 businesses that fall under that classification and are required to take that material somewhere else. And as Casey mentioned, there is not a lot of places to take it. I would also say that because we recognize the importance of this, one of the programs that the department has created is an organics programs within our school districts. So we have started, actually a couple years ago, we started pre-COVID, reaching out to the schools and offering to pay for waste assessments for them so they could see the amount of organic material they were generating and that we could help set up programs to divert it. We do have several school districts that are participating in that. Unfortunately, not Victor yet, but we're hoping to get there. And we think that having a facility to take this material that is close by would kind of help drive that program in the county. And then in community support, you'll see that we have a backyard composting program. And this is the first year we actually sold out all of our backyard composting units within a week. So we asked for additional funds and we'll be opening that back up. You'll also see that we supported the town of Gorham and the expansion of their organics program. And here Marcus Whitman, again, expanding their organics program within their school districts. So there is a huge push towards separating organics and processing them. Certainly, as we work with the Board of Supervisors to make a decision about what the future of the landfill looks like, this is a really important piece of that. And so I'm very happy to be here to help provide the town board with any information they need as they look into this process and any support that we can provide as well. If there's no questions for me, I'll turn it over to Jerry and he can tell you a little bit more specifically about what they're proposing. Thanks.
Thank you, Carla, and thank you, Casey. My name's Jerry Leone. I reside at 863 Victor Road. I'm here this evening to talk to you, as mentioned, about the opportunity for starting a food waste composting and recovery operation here in the town. Next slide, please. My background, I spent the last almost 6.5 years as a consultant to the United Nations. I've been on board with them as a waste management consultant, helping them to launch composting operations across Africa and Haiti. Prior to COVID, I was spending probably 4 to 5 trips a year over there in very fragile environments where waste management has become, was a problem. They were open burning and burying waste. We've launched a program that now controls that. We've helped them with high-tech incineration and composting, among other things. I have 35 years of experience. I spent 15 years with waste management, another 13 years with Casella. Prior to this year, I spent 20 years in the Town of Parents Conservation Board, and more recently, I took over as the inaugural chair for the Town Sustainability Advisory Board. With me this evening is Michael Viens, V-I-E-N-S. I grew up with Michael east of Syracuse. I've known Michael my whole life. He's been in horticulture, owns a nursery, and works for Ted Collins for his bulk of his professional career. Together, along with a couple other folks, we are hoping to move this project forward. Next slide, please. Some background, as Casey had mentioned, there are very few existing facilities for the management of food waste here in our region, in our area. The facility in Flint will be closing, which of course has served as important infrastructure to this community and others for quite some time. In parallel with that, we now have regulations that are in place that the DEC launched several years ago regarding which facilities, as Carla mentioned, are restricted for disposal of their source-separated organics. It may be expected that there will be a ratcheting of that requirement from 2 tons a week to 1 ton a week, particularly as more facilities like this come online. There's regulated producers of SSO, as Carla mentioned, that really don't have a choice but to go outside the area, which of course is impacting greenhouse gases and use of fuel. During my tenure with Labella, I participated in an organic study very similar to what Ontario County had done on behalf of the city of Rochester. It was quite alarming to find out that 1,000 tons a day, about 300 tons of which is organic in nature and should very well be diverted from a landfill, which many of you might know, next slide please, is causing methane emissions and leading to problems with our climate change. I believe strongly that this project would support circular economy practices, given that we would be turning this material into a soil that can be used quite productively for agricultural purposes. I think it's safe to say that our landfills here in New York are going to be closing. We don't see a whole lot of new ones opening. The Allegheny County landfill recently closed, and I believe the City of Albany landfill may be next. I mentioned climate change. I'll skip that. I believe strongly as well there's a very there's a high demand for compost, particularly this type of compost in organic farming, in landscaping, and perhaps arguably in the emerging cannabis industry. Next slide, please. We have opportunities, as Carla alluded, for educational outreach here. In particular, this site borders Yorktown Park, which we believe has some great synergies there. There's opportunities for funding you may be aware of with smart communities and such. The increase in source-separated recovery will undoubtedly, we expect to see disposal costs increase as the landfill changes its structure and associated management of the waste within the county. As Casey alluded, there's a potential to reduce town expenses associated with leaf, brush, and wood debris. And there's an opportunity here for the town to recognize revenue through lease payments that our operation would pay to the town as a result. Next slide, please. The state has requirements in place for facilities of this type. We would propose to venture into the highlighted area, which would be known as a registration process. We would have leachate and liquid management requirements, as well as reporting requirements to the department. There's a tier above that, which would require a full-blown Part 360 operating permit that would allow roughly 10 tons a day. In our case, we propose to stay less than that, about 48 tons, 50 tons a week. And we would expect to grow in steps, starting out small as somewhat of a pilot process and grow from there. Next slide, please. So the opportunity here, for those of you that might be familiar, composting is a fairly primitive operation. It's been around for a long, long time. In this case, there's really two technologies for the management of organics. Well, three, but in our case, one would be static pile aeration, where we would inject air into the piles with relatively little management of those piles. After about 30 to 35 days at roughly 140 degrees in thermophilic conditions, that material would then be ready for screening and further curing. Alternatively, more conventional practices are shown on the right, which is called windrowing. Those piles would be turned on occasion throughout the month, throughout 45 days. They would reach a state where they would also be stabilized and would go through curing. As I mentioned, we have an opportunity to transition from a small scale to a registered facility. We would hope to utilize yard waste as part of our process. We would be looking to utilize about 3 to 3.5 parts of brown material, whether it be bark, wood chips, leaves, etc. And we also feel strongly there's an opportunity, given my research and my development history within the United Nations, for bringing that research and development here locally. Next slide, please. So that said, we believe there's opportunities to do some experimental research around blending, processing, and recipe additions to make the process more efficient. These techniques, you'll see a small illustration in the middle of Africa. We had an engineering team that devised basically a rotor in the box. It's an automatic operation where the rotor just turns the waste, kind of similar to what the windrowing technology has. We believe there's considerable collaboration opportunity with Cornell Cooperative Extension, who I've worked with in the past. Next slide, please. This is an overview of the facility in Onondaga County. I won't bore you too much with that, but they do have what's called flow control, unlike other counties here in the state. That said, the bulk of all wastes stay within the county, and in particular, the county was in need of managing organics, which they've done so very, very successfully. This facility sits to the west of the state fairgrounds. You'll notice there's different piles. There's a screening operation, a packaging operation, et cetera. And like I said, they've been quite successful for a number of years now. Next slide, please. So that brings us to the opportunity here locally. We would hope and look to possibly utilize a 2-acre parcel within the pit. That opportunity potentially could exist within this area here. Voting to come into the site here. We talked about the potential for possible secondary access into the site, given this is the primary. We accommodate residential inflow of brush material, as Casey mentioned. There is currently a mining permit that does specify operations within the pit that are allowable, as well as those that are not. The county and the town are working with us on that particular aspect. And as I mentioned, we think strongly as well, the educational synergies with the adjacent park are really a fantastic fit for what I hope to be a development opportunity here. Next slide. I think that might be it. That's it. So I trust you may have questions for us.
So last Tuesday, board members, 4 individuals in the audience, and Councilman Condon and I and our highway superintendent toured and Regina from solid waste at the county as well, toured the site, and essentially the area that Jerry's identified up on the screen was where all the brush is currently stored, and then where a lot of the chipped materials already are. It made sense, and Dave and certainly Mark, either of you want to weigh in as well? Made sense, that identified area for what Jerry's looking for here.
Well, I was impressed when we went up to the pit. You know, Mark's showing where if you haven't been up to the pit before, there's 2 levels up there. And the level that they're looking at is where the brush comes in, where Dave dumps the brush. And as they bring in the fill, that area is getting a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. I mean, the upside is, obviously, is Casey talked about, all of a sudden now our brush starts going directly there to the pit instead of going down to the recycling center. So that frees up Dave and frees up time and energy and money in terms of transferring it. And the other thing is, as Jerry and this group get going, they're going to use up more of that brush. They'll actually use some of that organic material as it's ground up. They'll use some of that and continue to recycle it. I was pretty impressed with it, and I thought the other thing that I liked about it is Jerry showed us a little video, and if you send everybody the link, or Casey, make sure that we get that link that we saw, then we can watch that again if the other board members want to watch it, and about a place that's up and running down in Maryland. What I like about it, it's out of sight. You don't see it. It's not something that's highly visible. It doesn't take up a ton of space. It doesn't smell. And, you know, those were my concerns, you know, in terms of what their needs were. And I think when you start looking at 30 to 40% of our waste in Ontario County is organic, I mean, this community's, I don't want to say ripe for it, no pun intended, but I think that there's a lot of folks that are conscious of this. And we talked about the ground up movement. I mean, Marcus Whitman is doing separation down there. And why isn't Victor? Well, it's, you know, we're going to work on a little grassroots movement. I've got a couple of contacts up to school to get something going with a grassroots movement. It'd be very easy for a kid to take that styrofoam plastic tray and say, here's the organics, you know, and have a little contest of how many, you know, tons of organics we could bring out of Victor Central School. Can you imagine what we could bring out of that place and not have it go to landfill? So I'm excited about the opportunity of it, and I think it's a win-win, and not for, in my lifetime, but certainly in my children and my grandchildren's lifetime. I mean, it's going to be an issue.
Jerry, for the boards, in case they had any questions regarding potential traffic that would be coming in here, trucks bringing food scraps and things like that. So, because that was a question I asked, but I am
Sure.
sure I'm not the only one. So if you could describe vehicle traffic in and out of this.
Sure, Mr. Supervisor. So we would envision a part-time operation. We wouldn't expect to be open every day. We certainly wouldn't expect to be open on weekends. We would, however, want to accommodate the flow of residential traffic. However, that arguably might be outside our purview, but as far as our operations, to the question, we would expect to have trucks more so in the box truck and pickup truck category. I wouldn't expect that we would have tractor trailers, although I would like to park that thought. I wouldn't expect significant amount of tractor trailers, but over time, there is a possibility. There's a company called Natural Upcycle that services Wegmans. I don't have an idea if Wegmans may choose to come here at some point through Natural Upcycle, but they do have a larger tractor trailer. To the question of how many, really it gets down to what 50 tons a week, 48 tons a week looks like. That could look like anywhere from 3 to 6, maybe 7 trucks every other day, possibly, up to a point. And again, really the ceiling is going to dictate the truck traffic, like 50 tons, and that's the limit. We can't take any more than that. Now, however, on the back end, when the material is finished and cured and ready to leave, that may end up going out in a larger truck, but I wouldn't imagine any larger than the trucks that are already moving in and out of the mine as it is, if that answers your question.
I'll ask our highway superintendent, any concerns on truck traffic on your town road?
No, I don't think so, Jack. I think it's obviously smaller, it's going to be smaller trucks than what's currently going in there now. We've got our 10-wheelers and stuff that are going into the site. I don't see an increase of traffic from the sounds of it, so it's using a portion of the pit that's already holding the brush and the chips and whatnot already. So the loading area that Jerry did refer to does have some materials that we would have to find a location for. And then it would still allow us to continue to use the other portion of the pit as well, I think. So, but the truck traffic I don't see as a big deal. But I think one of the things that we did talk about was having a second entrance just so that we could continue using our portion of the pit and not interfere with the organics that are coming in and out, so.
And some type of fencing or anything to prevent people from coming in that second site? Okay, I'm getting head shakes here from the front row.
Yeah, on our site visit, we had talked about signage or fencing or something, so that residential
Okay.
Well, we'd have to have gates, like the pit, we lock up at night. I mean, the parks we lock up, and we'd have to
Yes.
have gates, obviously, when we're not in operation. We'd have to have something on there.
Correct.
And the site needs electric, correct?
Correct. Well, technically, yes, for our static pile aeration, we'd like to have electricity and potentially for security lighting as well.
Can you clarify, sir, what entities actually would actually be leasing this site?
At this time, I have a consulting business that I operate. We're looking to launch a limited liability corporation specific to this operation.
Okay, understood, thank you. And then is there any, I guess for everyone, just curious, does this change the mining permits? Is there anything, process that we're gonna have to go through to do this? Okay.
So, yes, Carla and Casey are on that,
And I guess what is the timeline?
Good luck
Is that
to
a
the DEC.
multi-year process? Or is it quicker than that?
Come to the podium so they can hear you on the live stream, please.
Yeah, as Jerry mentioned, right now your current mining permit has a condition that says waste can't be transported, stored, or processed there. So we would certainly have to amend the permit in not only would you require the mining permit be amended, but as Jerry referenced, the operation that's being proposed would require a separate registration under New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Registration process is much more simple to go through than the full-blown Part 360 process that Jerry mentioned. So I think we talked conceivably by fall or end of year if we got moving on things.
And then I did have a question specific to that registration versus the 360. So you would apply for, it's registration, is that the right term?
Yes, it is.
Oh, that term that falls between those, the certain thresholds.
Correct.
That's where you would be applying for. If in the future, your program expanded to where you'd want to go to that 360, is that something that would have to come before us as the town again
Absolutely.
to approve?
You know, that would be predicated on the mine opening up to other areas for our potential use. We really couldn't move to a higher level within a 2-acre spot.
All right. And then I think the last question I had was the final product that's yielded out of this process. What happens with that? Where does
Sure,
that go?
so that would be marketed locally. That's the material that I mentioned would provide our circular economy that could go back to local landscapers. I've spoken to our local organic farms. We have a Scott's Miracle-Gro facility here in Monroe County in Riga that I've spoke to as part of my Labella work and the study with the city. So I'd like to think, in fact, I would go on record to tell you that the organic farm that I spoke to here locally, they're sourcing this level of quality material out of Vermont. They just can't get it here for their purposes.
And then I know Dave mentioned it, but a facility like this produces no odors or anything noticeable out on,
It's an earthy, inert odor. I would encourage you folks, if you're in the Syracuse area, to just drive right by Onondaga County site. It couldn't be any closer to the road. Put the window down. It'll speak for itself.
Thank you.
Sure.
How many acres is the Onondaga site?
It's 5, Mr. Supervisor.
Yeah, currently, residents can go basically 6 days a week to drop brush whenever town barns are open. You mentioned that like Saturdays or weekends would be out and limited part-time. So we're gonna be taking some of that away from them. Will they still be required to use a permit? And how would we prevent some of the issues that we've had with people bringing stuff that, you know, whether it's a landscaping, let's say, company would come and dump their stuff?
So, Jerry, correct me in this instance, they want the quantity. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you would like the quantity. So now, we're gonna turn around and landscapers would, in the community, that would be a good thing, because that is organic material that you can process into a compost. So I'm not sure the permit portion of this, I'm not sure what that's gonna look like. I mean, I guess this is just step one. I
Right.
don't know what that's gonna look
The
like.
logistics of hours of operation, I think, is the root of the question. as
Yes.
far- We don't want to look to disrupt
No.
normality, so my answer would be, we'll work on logistics.
Okay,
through
fair enough.
this, with the
Yep.
idea that neither one, all of us on our side do not want to, change is difficult, we understand that.
Yeah.
Somehow it'll be manned so that.
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
permit- I mean, obviously.
I mean,
Whatever
it's not
they-
gonna be
they-
to be
probably
honest with
Monday,
you-
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We're probably gonna cut out a few days there. But, yeah, I think for the start of getting everyone on board, we wanna try to stick to at least transfer station hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the reality too, I envision, and again, you're talking logistics, which is not, my decision, but it might even be better manned
I
than
believe
our
you're right.
current situation.
I
With
agree.
guys sneaking in, like you say, yeah, there's a camera, but they know they can hide the brush over the stuff that
Yes.
shouldn't be going in there. And if somebody, either from Jerry's or from our end of it, is there policing it
Mm-hmm.
on those 3 days that it's open or whatever, you can't bring that in here. Yes, you can, that kind of stuff.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Also, currently, residents can come in, once we do the grinding, they can get mulch. Is that still a thing that's gonna happen, or will that go away also?
I see that happening, one way or another, we'll make that work.
Okay.
And
just-
maybe our residents would even have access to some of the finished product
We can work that out.
Yeah.
Okay,
AAC.
thank you.
So to meet the tonnage requirement that you have, what we presently get per year in our own brush, you're going to need more than what we have now, I would assume, right, to meet
We
your-
have
to
been
max
talking
out?
to some providers that we think can bring that material.
Your Ted Collins would come up with something.
That's one example of many,
So,
of many.
Yeah, so,
Michael, ju- don't want you to get yelled at.
At this point, as far as, the input and the output of, it's all trucking, and we're just
Yeah.
trying to cut that down to, have it be a sustainable product, on-site in Victor. As far as, we're getting mulch from Pennsylvania, and, like composts are coming from Vermont, and, we're trying to just keep this localized and, utilize the resources that we have in our area.
and I assume we're probably going to have to grind it to a higher level than what we do, like how many grinds are we going to have to do to get it to the consistency you need?
It depends on the machinery, and this is based on our budgets too.
Yeah.
And contributions potentially, but that's the big thing that I talked to Jerry about. It's that machine that grinds it, They have one machine that can do it, but, the budget down the line potentially can accommodate.
You are
that.
utilizing your own grinder?
Yeah, we intend
Okay.
to do that.
All right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and they last for 15 years, the one in Onondaga County, they had a backup one and now they're replacing the one that they had.
I've seen that operation,
Yeah,
and that's pretty
it's
impressive.
amazing, but that machine is key to the success almost.
Yep.
So would we assume the finer the grind, the quicker the composting
That's
process?
indeed part of it, Mr. Supervisor, absolutely. In addition to the recipe on the front end.
Recipe.
We make some science out of this.
Jerry's going to be over there with that box,
Oh, yeah.
with the turning it.
Oh, yeah.
Would there be any permanent structures that would need to be,
Not at this time. Nothing permanent, no. Absolutely not.
then, do you have an idea on the terms of the length of a lease that you'd be looking for?
Arguably, or not arguably, but considerably, given the operation, I would submit to you probably something on the lower end of 2 to 3 years, maybe up to 5 years with a renewal. See how it goes.
Start with the 2 acres and look
Go
to,
from there, no pun intended.
And do you have any idea how much juice you'll need for electric?
So that'll be a function of the number of blowers, but it's really like a slinky. The pile grows backwards, the front end gets cured, and just continues to go back and forth. So I don't think it's going to be tremendous. I mean, we would look to,
a great point.
pay for our electric
the
needs.
video that Casey
It's
has.
Veterans Composting, by
You
the way.
would get that visual of this.
It's on YouTube, Veterans Composting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really instructive and intuitive. It's a
One
residential.
question that has nothing to do with your part, but just from your knowledge. So and I've been in all the waste management facilities and Casella, are they going to find a way to regulate the amount of outside waste that comes into those landfills to make that diversion part of their, or is that only?
Well, that's a policy thing. I'm going to let Ms. Jordan
I
discuss.
Because
love
it's-
policy discussions. So certainly, the state as a whole, as I mentioned, has these local solid waste management plans. So every county in the state, every planning unit is supposed to have a local solid waste management plan approved by the state that sets these reduction goals that they're supposed to meet. So conceivably, a lot of people who send their waste to our landfill they do have a plan that they're following for reduction and education and recycling.
Massachusetts and downstate and all those are regulated when they
Right.
come in?
Yeah, not Massachusetts, but downstate, yes. So like Suffolk County, Rockland County have extensive local solid waste management plans. They have composting facilities, recycling material recovery facilities. So they do have extensive amounts of programs and regulations at that local level to help. And then in terms of what we accept at our own landfill, certainly that's a policy decision that I'm sure Supervisor Marin is very excited to get into at the county level with what the Board of Supervisors think the use of the landfill site that we have will be post-2028. I can tell you that I don't think anybody has an appetite to have it continue to operate at the size it is now. So I think anything in the future would be significantly less, if that.
Do you, within our current permit, the presenter, all of you have mentioned the need, what's its, the use, what we're permitted to use for, so that needs to be changed. As mentioned earlier, potentially, is there a liner or leachate, is that something you, Carla, either you or Jerry would foresee as the DEC maybe get, very concerned about?
So the registration process does require management of liquids through the facility. So I would envision, I don't necessarily expect a liner per se, given the rock nature of the site, but I might expect we would have some provisions for runoff controls, possibly a sump of some nature. We would look to put those liquids right back into the system.
Further questions for either? So at this point, Casey and Carla, everyone's fine with having them continue to pursue the permit process to see what needs to be modified? Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Great.
Thank
Well,
you.
I appreciate everyone's attention and willingness to listen to us this evening and possible support. Thank you.
Okay, public comments. Susie, do you have anyone on YouTube? Anyone here in the public care to comment? Okay, moving to reports of town officials. We have the report from the Highway Department, and it's interesting if you read through and under the highway, the last paragraph, it talks about the auction and what we paid for things and what the return on investment was at the auction. So, well done. And then the recycling question, on the second paragraph, there's a question here. The request to, they've done well with the, again, at the auction, would like to use any funds received from the auction to purchase either a new commingle compactor or open-top container in 2024. So, board members, any thoughts on this? Approving, disapproving? Okay, I'll take that silence as thumbs up.
Yeah,
Ed, you fine?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. Next, we have a report from IT, and then last one is economic development, and I do want to thank Councilman Ed Kohovic, also known in his part-time life as MC Ed, and he did a very good job as the MC for the Business Awards Luncheon. In addition, there's a number of comments in there from people that did attend as well that's worth reading. So thank you again, Ed. A couple items real quick. In your mailbox should have been the Victor Farmington Volunteer Ambulance Monthly Report. In addition, there was the letter that a highway superintendent and Casey had shared with me regarding from the DOT CHIPS funding letter. And then this past Friday, it's worth mentioning that had an opportunity to recognize some Victortown residents. We recognize at the county 15 seniors who had Seniors of the Year award, and we recognize Joan and Bob Muto, Joan Trost, and then across the street, the Victor Clothes Closet as well. So congratulations to them for their efforts. So board members, or any board member have any committee they'd care to report on?
Just a comment, in case for anybody who hasn't heard yet, tomorrow's the big day where we expect to see that monument be reset out front. Flagpole, all the concerned parties are notified. So it's been a long, kind of drawn-out process, but the fact that we're going to get it set and redone and ready to go for Memorial Day makes me very happy.
Thank you, and I appreciate certainly you championing this and taking it. Karen, I would suggest you don't park your car there tomorrow, though. That's the only thing I would say, okay?
We got something big, we can move it.
Any other board member care to report? Okay, moving to the business section, we'll start with the Highway Department. We have a couple resolutions. Number one is the purchase of radar speed signs.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is purchase of bike signs, and we recall, Mark, I want to appreciate your support on this, and certainly the efforts of Mr. Mark Robbins and his group coming in here back in maybe February here, but.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, from Human Resources, appointment of Suzanne Mandrino, Permanent Manager of Technology Support.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Well deserved.
Number 4, appointment of Anna Sullivan to part-time 6-month seasonal.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Parks and Rec, limited permission for the alcohol use for the summer concert events and the Taco Tuesdays.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And number 6 is, excuse me, number 5, my bad, is number 6. Number 6. Okay.
Jennifer Lewis,
I have Jennifer Lewis
Yeah.
on 6 on my,
what I have.
so let's go with Jennifer Lewis for instruction for in children's musical theater and dance.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Dog park is 7.
Okay, Dog Park, authorization to seek bids for the dog park at Harlan Fisher.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then request for certificate of liability insurance, and again, this would be potentially for the benefit of Jennifer Lewis and her programs.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 9, revisions to design and construction standards for land development. Work efforts between the town engineer and the planning and building department. A lot of these are recommendations, I think, that came through Public Works at the Farmington with their sewer treatment plant.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 10, the purchase of a 2023 Chevrolet Equinox.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And number 11, we do have a gentleman here from Conifer Village, and I know this is, we're referencing rezoning application. This falls under a PDD, I think would be my understanding. And so I'm making some modifications to parking, so if you would, sir.
Yes, hello. Make sure I got this microphone up where everybody can hear me. Thank you for taking time tonight to see our proposal. We're here or I guess I'm here on behalf of Conifer, for the PDD amendment for the Village East Apartments. So we are located at 7410 Forest Trail. We're on the corner of Forest Trail and Turk Hill Road. So the building was originally constructed in 1999 as a senior home, senior living. And so since then, the apartments have been refurbished and reused as market rate apartments. Under the original senior housing, as I'm sure you're all aware, senior housing under your code usually requires fewer parking spaces. So now under existing use and pre-approved use, the client is running into issues of parking on site that does not fall into code and too few parking spaces right now. Under our existing plan, we existing conditions, we currently have 79 parking spaces. With the proposed 15, that'll bring us up to 94 spaces. The reason we're here for the PDD amendment, we previously had those 15 spaces approved under land banked parking, but previously they were separate spaces, 10 banked on the, 10 banked along kind of this corner here, and then 5 land bank spaces proposed where we currently have all 15. It was decided that the better option was to just move forward with all 15 put together with the required retaining wall and to limit disturbance into the existing stormwater management area. Currently, where we're proposing all 15, we do not propose any disturbance into the stormwater management area, and it just kind of consolidates that required wall there that we need into one location. So that's really all I have. It's not a major site
Your name
modification.
for the record.
Oh, sorry. Jim Ritzenthaler. I can spell
Thank
it
you,
if you
Jim.
like.
Questions for,
Yeah, from Passero Associates.
any questions for Jim? Any questions on?
What's the timeline for the project?
Looking to move forward fairly soon. I believe they do want to start construction, I'd like to say July, because we have another.
Do you happen to know during the construction phase of this, is there going to be vehicles displaced? Are they going to be able to access that backside of the parking lot?
Yeah, that is the plan. Yep.
So there won't be a disruption to the current number of available spaces?
No, there shouldn't be any disruption really to the current number. The parking that is in that area, you can see it. There's only a couple spaces in there that would be across from it, and they're close to the building, so there wouldn't be any construction vehicles or anything like that in there. You should maintain access through that whole space.
Supervisor, I would say I'm glad to see this proposal, and I think that the town fire marshal probably is as well. I haven't seen the specific site plans up close, but parking has been a tremendous challenge there from the emergency management side over the last 10 years or so, and it's something that if you had asked me some target hazards as far as parking and access go, this might be number 1 or number 2 in the town, so.
Yeah.
Don't want to be on that list. Okay. Thank you, Councilman. There's no further question? Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
So here's the resolution before you, gentlemen.
So moved.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those, yep, those opposed? Okay. Number 11 is passed. Moving to 12, excuse me.
Thank you.
Declaring the town board's intent to serve as lead agency for this application.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And number 13, the drainage improvement area extension after the,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
And number 14, escrow for the drumlins. Let's see.
So moved.
Mission accomplished up there, I
Yes,
guess.
you planted the trees.
Yeah,
so
finally,
it's-
finally.
Yes.
I'll second
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we start with Susie. Anyone on public comment on YouTube? Any members of the public care to address the town board? Hearing no speakers, motion to adjourn this meeting.
it. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.